The late afternoon sunlight filtered gently through the windows of a small coffee shop called The Lantern, casting a golden hue across the polished wooden tables. At a quiet corner booth near the window, 29-year-old Lauren Mitchell smoothed down her simple pale blue blouse for the fourth time in as many minutes. She sat stiffly, her nerves wound tight as piano wire. It was her first real date in years, and easily the most awkward one yet. Beside her sat her energetic 4-year-old son, Ethan, swinging his legs beneath the booth seat, his well-loved denim overalls slightly rumpled from their rushed morning. Strands of his sandy brown hair still curled in unruly tufts no matter how many times Lauren had tried to tame them with water and her fingers. Ethan had a coloring book open in front of him, along with a small box of crayons Lauren always kept stashed in her purse for emergencies like this, any time she needed him occupied and still for longer than 5 minutes. Lauren checked her phone again, her heart hammering in her chest. She regretted agreeing to this blind date. Her best friend Nicole had been practically relentless in setting it up, swearing up and down that her coworker Michael was a perfect match for her. But Lauren knew better. Most men did not stick around when they found out she came as a package deal, with a child and 2 part-time jobs. And then, as luck would have it, her babysitter called in sick that morning with a fever. That left Lauren with a tough decision: cancel the date and once again disappoint Nicole, or bring Ethan along and pray the whole thing didn't turn into an unfixable disaster. At exactly 3 p.m., the bell above the front door jingled, and in walked a tall man wearing a sharp navy blue suit that looked like it belonged more in a boardroom than a local cafe. He carried himself with the ease and confidence of someone used to being in charge, his eyes scanning the room. Michael Carter, now 36, had spent the last decade building his strategic consulting firm into one of the city's fastest-growing companies. His life revolved around contracts, quarterly reports, and high-powered meetings, not coffee shop dates arranged by overly enthusiastic coworkers. But as soon as his gaze landed on Lauren, he recognized her from Nicole's description: soft blonde waves, kind eyes, and a quiet confidence about her. What Nicole had failed to mention, however, was the young boy at her side, who was now coloring intensely, his little tongue sticking out in concentration. Lauren's stomach dropped when she saw the flicker of confusion cross Michael's face. She quickly rose to her feet, cheeks flushing. "I'm so sorry," she blurted. "Nicole probably didn't tell you about Ethan. My babysitter got sick this morning, and I couldn't find anyone else on such short notice. I should have canceled, I know. If you'd prefer to leave, I completely understand. I really didn't mean to waste your time." Michael looked from her embarrassed expression to the boy sitting quietly with his crayons. Ethan glanced up with curious eyes, studying the newcomer with the open honesty only children possessed. Instead of walking away, Michael smiled and stepped forward, crouching slightly to extend his hand. "Hey there. I'm Michael. What's your name, buddy?" Ethan turned to his mother for confirmation, and when she nodded gently, he returned the handshake. "I'm Ethan. I'm 4, and I can spell my name all by myself." Michael laughed softly. "That's impressive," he said, settling into the seat across from them. "What are you drawing?" Ethan held up his latest masterpiece with pride, a colorful crayon sketch of 3 stick figures standing in front of what looked like a house, with a giant yellow sun in the corner and oversized flowers dotting the grass. "This is my family," Ethan explained. "That's me, that's Mommy, and that's Daddy." Lauren felt her heart twist in her chest. Ethan's father had walked out when he was just a toddler, overwhelmed by the reality of parenthood. The memories Ethan had of him were foggy at best, but from time to time he would still draw pictures like this. Families that included a dad, even if the man himself had long since vanished from their lives. "You're a great artist," Michael said gently, tapping the drawing with his finger. "Looks like a pretty awesome family." "Mommy says I got it from Daddy," Ethan added matter-of-factly. He was an artist too, but he had to leave. Lauren blinked away the sudden sting in her eyes. She reached into her purse and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. "Hey, sweetie," she said, clearing her throat. "Why don't you draw something new for Mr. Michael while we talk?" "Okay," Ethan chirped, already reaching for a crayon. Lauren braced herself for the awkward silence or the polite but distant response she had become used to in moments like these. But to her surprise, Michael looked at her with a softness that caught her off guard. "You don't have to apologize," he said quietly. "For bringing Ethan. Or for the fact that he asked about his dad. Most people don't want the complications," she admitted under her breath. "Then they're missing out," he replied simply. Over the next hour, something unexpected happened. The awkwardness Lauren had braced herself for never arrived. Instead, they talked easily, laughing softly between questions and shared stories, while Ethan remained blissfully focused on his artistic duties. Michael asked thoughtful questions, not just about Ethan's favorite colors and cartoons, but about Lauren's life, her work, her hobbies. He praised Ethan's drawings like a seasoned art critic and didn't seem remotely bothered by the occasional outburst or interruption. "Mr. Michael," Ethan declared, holding up his newest creation, "this is you." The drawing showed a tall stick figure in what appeared to be a suit, standing next to Ethan and Lauren. The figure wore a big smile and held what looked like a briefcase. "I love it," Michael said, accepting the drawing with care. "Can I keep this one?" Ethan beamed. "Yeah. Mommy, can we get Mr. Michael a coffee? I think he's thirsty." Lauren began to object, not wanting to impose further, but Michael had already raised a hand toward the barista. "Actually, Ethan, that sounds like a great idea. What do you think your mom would like?" "She likes vanilla coffee," Ethan replied confidently. "And I like hot chocolate. But not too hot." Michael placed the order for all three of them. As Lauren watched him from across the table, something shifted inside her. She had expected judgment. She had expected this meeting to be a waste of time, another reminder that her life was too complicated for romance. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a man who not only accepted Ethan's presence, but seemed to genuinely enjoy it. For most of her dating life since Ethan's father left, Lauren Mitchell had experienced the same frustrating pattern. Men either pretended Ethan didn't exist or offered painfully awkward attempts at bonding that felt as forced as they were short-lived. Michael Carter, though, was nothing like that. He spoke to Ethan not as if he were a problem to be solved or some tiny adult, but as a real person. When Ethan accidentally knocked over half his hot chocolate, Michael barely blinked. He just reached for some napkins and helped the boy clean up, chatting the whole time like it was no big deal. Later, when Ethan proudly counted all the way to 20, Michael listened with patient attention, nodding at each number as if it were the most impressive thing he'd heard all day. While Ethan colored intently, Lauren leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Michael replied, setting his coffee down. "You're really good with kids. Do you have any of your own?" The question shifted something in Michael's face, his easy smile fading into something more somber. "No," he said quietly, "but I do have a little sister. Well, not so little anymore, she's 21 now. But I helped raise her after our parents died in a car accident. I was 21 when it happened. She was 6. Lauren's breath caught in her throat. "Michael, I'm so sorry." He gave a small smile. "Thanks. It was a long time ago. But raising Lily taught me a lot. Mostly that kids need more than just rules and routines. They need consistency, kindness, and to feel like they matter, like they're not just being tolerated." Lauren nodded slowly. "Exactly." Her voice was soft, but her heart felt warm in a way that had nothing to do with the vanilla-scented coffee in her cup. "Mr. Michael," Ethan chimed in, breaking the moment. "Want to see my favorite trick?" Michael grinned. "Absolutely." Ethan leaned forward, stuck out his tongue, and proudly touched the tip of it to his nose. He giggled at Michael's attempt to mimic him, failing miserably. "That's amazing," Michael laughed, holding up his hands. "I surrender. No way I can do that." By the time they left the cafe that day, Lauren felt lighter than she had in months. For the first time in what felt like forever, she had been seen as more than just someone's mother, more than someone with too much baggage and not enough free time. As Ethan worked on his final sketch, Michael cleared his throat and said, "Lauren, I hope this doesn't come off too forward. But would you and Ethan like to have dinner with me sometime?" She blinked. "You mean, you're the two of us?" Michael smiled. "Of course. I know a great place with a kid-friendly menu and coloring mats. You're a package deal, Lauren. That's not a problem, it's just who you are." And I'd really like to get to know both of you. Ethan perked up. We're going to dinner with Mr. Michael? Can I get chicken nuggets? Lauren laughed through the lump in her throat. We'll see, sweetheart. I hope that's a yes, Michael said softly, his eyes warm. 6 months later, Lauren stood at the sink of the small kitchen in the cozy home Michael had helped her purchase. Through the open window, she watched as Michael and Ethan worked side by side in the backyard garden they'd built together. Ethan, now 5, carefully watered a row of cherry tomatoes while Michael explained how roots absorb nutrients and why plants needed both sunshine and water to thrive. The kitchen walls were covered in Ethan's artwork, crayon drawings, finger paintings, and construction paper collages. Among them hung one piece in a sleek black frame, the very first drawing Ethan had made of their family, back on the day they met Michael at the cafe. That picture, once just a hopeful imagination, now mirrored real life. In more recent drawings, Michael appeared regularly, sometimes holding Ethan's hand, sometimes pushing a toy truck, always smiling. Lauren's 2 part-time jobs had since evolved into one full-time role at Michael's consulting firm. Her sharp mind and organizational talents made her indispensable there, but more than that, she'd found something she never thought she would again, a partner who loved her and the life she shared with her son. Mama! Ethan's voice rang out through the window. Come look at how big our tomatoes got. She stepped outside, and Michael wrapped an arm around her waist as Ethan beamed up at them, gesturing toward the plants like a proud little farmer. You know, Michael said softly, I used to think success was about hitting targets, increasing revenue, pleasing clients. Lauren tilted her head toward him. And what do you think now? He looked over at Ethan, who was now coaxing a butterfly to land on his finger, then back at Lauren, whose face glowed in the warm afternoon light. Now I think success is moments like this. Coming home to people who are happy to see you. Belonging somewhere. Building something that makes all of us stronger. Just then, the butterfly landed gently on Ethan's outstretched hand. He turned toward them, eyes wide with awe. I think he likes me. Michael knelt beside him. Of course he does. You're very likable. As evening approached and they prepared dinner together, Ethan insisted on setting the table, 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 glasses, just like he had every night since Michael had officially moved in 2 months ago. That old cafe drawing had turned out to be prophetic. Ethan had drawn what he wished his family looked like, and somehow, the universe had listened. Lauren often thought back to that awkward day when she debated even showing up. She'd been convinced no man would want to be part of her complicated world. But Michael didn't see love as a complication to manage. He saw it as a gift to nurture, even when it came wrapped in chaos. And Ethan, now confident in his role within this new family, still drew the 3 of them together. But the latest versions had changed. Now, Michael wasn't just standing beside them. He was holding their hands, completing the circle. Because sometimes, the best love stories start with an apology for taking up too much space, only to discover that the right person had been waiting for exactly that space to be filled. And sometimes, a child's hopeful crayon sketch becomes the blueprint for the family they were always meant to have. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.